Okay, so ready to dive in. Today, we are tackling Simon Sinek's Start With Why, which I'm pretty pumped about.
Yeah, always a good one to revisit. Timeless.
Totally. It's all about getting to the heart of what makes people and organizations truly successful, like what makes them tick, why some just nail it, while others, well, they don't. And we've got Sinek's book, Start With Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action, as our trusty guide.
It's a deep dive into the power of purpose, why some ideas catch fire and others fizzle out.
Right. So no messing around. Let's jump straight to Sinek's central idea, the one that kind of flips everything on its head. He says that most of us, when we're explaining what we do, we tend to start from the outside in.
We lead with the what, right? Like, I sell insurance, or I'm a graphic designer, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then maybe we layer on the how, like I use this awesome software or I have a unique approach. But the real game changers, the ones who truly inspire, they go deeper. They start with the why.
They're driven by belief, a cause, a purpose that goes beyond just what they do.
It's like Sinek says, and it's so simple yet profound. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Think about it. When you're drawn to a brand or a leader, it's often because something about their core values resonates with you.
It's that deeper connection that makes you go, yeah, I get that. I believe in that too.
And Sinek illustrates this beautifully with the story of the Wright brothers and Samuel Langley. Both of them were trying to achieve the same thing, right? Build the first successful airplane. But their approaches were fundamentally different.
And this is a perfect example of why understanding why matters. Langley, he had all the resources, the prestige, the government funding. The newspapers were already basically writing his victory lap.
But he was focused on the what? The achievement itself, the fame and fortune that would come with it.
The Wright brothers, on the other hand, they had this burning belief that their invention, this flying machine, could change the world.
Their why was about pushing the boundaries of what was possible, connecting people in ways never imagined before.
And that difference in motivation was everything. The Wright brothers, with their small team and limited resources, they persevered through countless setbacks, crashes, you name it. They were fueled by that deep-seated purpose.
Langley, though, when things got tough, he basically just gave up. The why wasn't strong enough to keep him going.
It's a pretty powerful lesson. The Wright brothers weren't the best funded or even the most experienced, but they had that unwavering belief in their why, and that made all the difference.
It's about the power of purpose to fuel innovation, to drive you through those inevitable challenges.
Now, fast forward to today. Think about Apple. They're consistently held up as a shining example of a company that truly starts with why.
They're not just selling gadgets, right? They're selling a belief system, a way of seeing the world.
Yeah, their why is all about challenging the status quo, empowering the individual. And their products, from the sleek design to the user experience, are all carefully crafted to reflect that belief.
It's about making technology intuitive, accessible, a tool for creativity and connection.
Remember when creative technology came out with the first portable MP3 player?
Yeah, their marketing was all about the technical specs, like 5 gigabytes of storage.
The what?
Exactly.
Ah.
But when Apple launched the iPod, nearly 2 years later, their message was completely different.
1,000 songs in your pocket.
It wasn't about the storage space. It was about the freedom, the possibility, the emotional connection to your music.
People bought into that vision, that why. They weren't just buying a device, they were buying a lifestyle, a feeling.
It's like Dell trying to break into the PDA and MP3 player markets. They had the tech, the manufacturing capabilities.
What and how?
But consumers just didn't see them as anything other than a computer company. Their why wasn't clear in those spaces.
Right. Apple, realizing that their purpose extended beyond just computers, they even dropped computer from their name.
It was a symbolic shift, a way of saying to the world, we're about something bigger, something more meaningful.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a different kind of leader. Someone who inspired millions without a product or a company. Martin Luther King Jr.
He was a master at communicating his why.
He didn't lead with detailed policy proposals or logistical plans.
He led with a vision, a belief in equality for all.
The 1963 March on Washington is a powerful example. 250,000 people showed up, not because they received a formal invitation, but because they were drawn to that shared why.
It was about their own vision for a better future, a more just society, resonating with King's powerful message.
So it wasn't about King dictating what needed to happen. It was about him articulating the why, the core belief that fueled the entire civil rights movement.
And this brings us to a crucial distinction that Sinek makes: manipulation versus inspiration.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. Sinek says there are two ways to get people to do things. You can manipulate them, or you can inspire them.
Manipulation relies on tactics like fear, peer pressure, novelty, or those tempting price drops.
Think about those car commercials that are all about cashback incentives, or those ads that prey on your insecurities.
Or that trendy gadget that everyone had to have last year but now sits gathering dust in a drawer.
Right. Manipulation might get you a quick sale, but it doesn't build loyalty, and it can even erode trust.
Inspiration, on the other hand, speaks to your core values, to what you believe in. When a company's why aligns with your own, you're not just buying a product, you're joining a movement.
You're making a statement about who you are and what you stand for.
And you're more likely to stick around, to become a loyal customer or advocate.
Okay, so now let's talk about Sinek's Golden Circle framework. It's a way of visualizing how this all works.
Imagine three concentric circles. The outermost circle is what? The products, the services, the tangible things you do.
The next circle in is how, the processes, the strategies, what makes you unique.
And at the very center, the core is why, the purpose, the belief, the cause.
Sinek says that inspiring organizations communicate from the inside out. They start with their why, then explain how they bring it to life, and finally talk about what they offer.
Most organizations do it the other way around. They lead with what they do, and maybe, if you're lucky, you get a glimpse of their why somewhere down the line.
But that's not how you create a deep connection.
It's about starting with the heart, the purpose, the reason for being.
And here's the thing. It's not enough to just have a why. You have to live it, breathe it. It has to be reflected in everything you do.
The what has to be a genuine expression of the why.
Otherwise, people see right through it. They sense that disconnect, that inauthenticity.
This idea of alignment also taps into our deep-seated human need to belong. Sinek uses the Dr. Seuss story of the Sneetches to illustrate this.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. It's about these creatures, some with stars on their bellies and some without.
The plain-bellied Sneetches were desperate to fit in with the star-bellied Sneetches, going to ridiculous lengths to get those stars.
It's a hilarious story, but it makes a profound point about our desire to be part of a group, a tribe, a community that shares our values.
When a company clearly articulates its why, it's essentially sending out a signal. If you believe what we believe, you belong here.
It's not just about liking their products. It's about feeling a sense of kinship, a shared identity.
That's why you see those passionate brand communities forming around companies like Apple or Patagonia.
It's not just about the products. It's about aligning with a set of values, a way of seeing the world.
And it's interesting how this plays out on a neurological level. Sinek talks about how our gut decisions, the ones that feel right, originate in the limbic brain,
The part of the brain that controls feelings and decision-making, but not language.
which is why you often can't explain exactly why you made a certain choice. You just know it feels right.
So if a company doesn't communicate its why, you're forced to make decisions based solely on logic, on the what.
The features, the benefits, the price, but you're missing that emotional connection.
And that can make decisions feel more difficult, less certain. You don't have that gut feeling to guide you.
This is why clarity of why is so crucial. You need to know what you stand for, and you need to communicate it clearly.
And then you need the discipline to stay true to that why, to let it guide your actions.
The how has to be aligned with the why.
And of course, the what you offer has to be a genuine reflection of that core belief.
This consistency is what builds trust, and trust is the foundation of lasting success.
Think about Southwest Airlines. Their commitment to low fares. It's not just a marketing gimmick. It stems directly from their why of making air travel accessible to everyone.
And their culture of putting employees first, of valuing people, that's what creates that legendary Southwest experience.
It's about trusting your employees, empowering them to make decisions, to go the extra mile for customers.
Contrast that with companies that are plagued by mistrust, where everything is about control and hierarchy.
Like Gordon Bethune encountered when he took over Continental Airlines. He had to completely transform the culture, starting by rebuilding trust from the inside out.
It's a great example of how leadership can make or break a company's why.
And remember that Shackleton ad for his Antarctic expedition. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness.
Talk about a filter. He wasn't just looking for strong backs, he was looking for people who shared his why, his unwavering belief in the face of incredible odds.
And speaking of overcoming obstacles, Southwest's famous 10-minute turnaround, it was born out of a crisis, right?
They were facing a serious financial crunch, and their employees, driven by that shared why of making air travel affordable, came up with an incredibly innovative solution.
It shows how a strong sense of purpose can fuel creativity, especially when times get tough.
On the flip side, when a company loses sight of its why, it becomes incredibly vulnerable. Think about the collapse of Barings Bank.
A classic example of what happens when individual greed and short-term thinking take over. They lost their way, their why, and it ultimately led to their downfall.
Okay, so let's talk about the tipping point. How does this all connect with the way ideas spread?
Right, so Sinek brings in this concept called the law of diffusion of innovations, which explains how new ideas are adopted.
It's a bell curve that goes from innovators to early adopters, to the early majority, then the late majority, and finally the laggards.
And the key to reaching mass adoption, to really hitting it big, is winning over the early majority.
And who influences the early majority? The early adopters.
And what motivates early adopters?
It's the why. They're the ones who are drawn to the purpose, the belief behind an idea or a product.
So if you're focused solely on the features, the benefits, you might attract a few tech enthusiasts, but you'll struggle to reach that critical mass.
Think about TiVo. They had a revolutionary product, the ability to pause live TV, but they focused on what it did rather than why it mattered.
They didn't tap into that desire for control, for convenience, for a better viewing experience.
They missed the emotional connection, the why.
Now, as organizations grow, Sinek talks about this phenomenon called the split.
It's the point where that initial clarity of why starts to get diluted.
In the early days, the founder's passion is usually front and center.
But as the company gets bigger, the focus often shifts to processes, to hitting targets, to maintaining the status quo.
And the why can get lost in the shuffle.
You see this with companies like AOL, which started out as this innovative, disruptive force, but eventually lost its way.
So how do you prevent this split? How do you keep that why alive as an organization grows?
Sinek says it's about actively measuring the why, not just the what.
He gives examples like Christina Harbridge's debt collection agency. Her why was about treating people with respect, even in difficult circumstances.
And Dwayne Honor's construction company, which prioritized work-life balance for its employees.
By tracking metrics related to their core beliefs, they were able to ensure that their why remained central to their operations. So it's not enough to just talk about your why. You have to embed it in your culture, in your processes, in how you measure success.
Now let's talk about leadership. Sinek says that true leaders need a following, and you build that following by inspiring people, not by bossing them around.
It's about embodying that why, communicating it in everything you do.
Think about the impact of visionary leaders like Steve Jobs at Apple or Sam Walton at Walmart.
When they were at the helm, the company's why was clear, and it infused every aspect of the organization.
And when they were gone, things often shifted. The why became less central, less tangible.
Like when Howard Schultz returned to Starbucks, he had to reignite that passion, that sense of purpose that had started to fade.
And Costco's continued success, driven by their why of providing value for both employees and customers, is a testament to the enduring power of a clearly defined purpose.
So where does a why come from? Sinek suggests that it often stems from reflecting on those defining moments in your life, the experiences that shaped your values.
I remember early in my career, I was all about the hustle, the achievement, but then I had a point where I realized I'd lost sight of why I was doing it all.
Yeah, me too. That feeling of being a fraud, of just going through the motions. It's not a good place to be.
Sinek contrasts this with the story of Ben, the last runner in a marathon, who inspires people not by trying to win, but by pushing his own limits. His why is about challenging himself, about proving something to himself.
It's not about external validation. It's about that internal drive, that sense of purpose.
And great companies like Ben, they maintain that why over time. They're constantly striving to improve, to live up to that core belief.
It's not about outdoing the competition. It's about being true to yourself, to your purpose. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's the key takeaway for you. It's not just about what you do in the world. It's about why you do it.
Take some time to reflect on the people and organizations that inspire you. What's their why?
And think about your own life, your own work. What's your why?
How clearly are you communicating it? How authentically are you living it?
In a world that's constantly bombarding us with information and choices, starting with why can be the most powerful way to find clarity, to connect with others, and to create something truly meaningful.
It's about tapping into that deeper purpose, that driving force that makes you get up in the morning and say, this is why I do what I do.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure. Until next time.